Last month, I read 14 books. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, how are you able to read so much in a single month? I'm going to tell you exactly how. I'm also going to give you a review and tell you whether or not they are worth adding to your TBR. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Meg, and if you like books, hearing me talk about books, or just seeing the insane amount of books I read each month, you're absolutely in the right place. Before I reveal all of the ratings and reviews and thoughts behind each book, I want to tell you how I'm able to read so many books a month, and it's kind of crazy, but the reason I am able to read so often is a couple of things. One of them being that I love audiobooks. A few of my favorite apps to get free and then also paid audiobooks are Libby, which is our local library app, Hoopla, another library app that connects to your library card and your local library's catalog, Audible, which I'm sure many of you have heard of Audible, where you can pay a monthly subscription, Spotify. If you are a Spotify premium member, you can listen to a certain number of hours per month of audiobooks, which I always max it out. I'm trying to think if there are any more apps that I use for audiobooks. Nope, that's all the audiobook apps. And then as far as reading goes, of course, I have physical books. I also occasionally use Kindle Unlimited. I use Libby again for checking out Kindle books for my local library. And of course, we utilize our local library quite often around here. But that is how I'm able to resource myself with so many book options. As far as creating the time to read often, that's a little tricky. It really depends month to month. Last month, I was just able to fly through so many books because I actually have insomnia quite often. So I will a lot of times sleep with my book or my Kindle under my pillow, and 4 a.m. rolls around and I can't sleep, I just read. And I do that kind of all the time. So a lot of my books are read in the middle of the night. I also listen to audiobooks all the time. Anytime I have to do a chore, anytime I have to drive, anytime I am prepping dinner, an audiobook is usually playing. All of those things combined equals reading a lot of books. Now let's jump into the ratings on the books that I read last month. So the first book that I want to talk to you guys about is Nothing Like the Movies. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, and I'll just cut to the chase and tell you 5 stars. 5 stars. It was a lot different than the first book, but I have a lot of books to get through, so what I think I'll do is maybe just give a 1-sentence review, and hopefully that will be enough to compel you either to or not to add these books to your TBR. So my mini review for Nothing Like the Movies is an anti-rom-com that actually turns into a rom-com. And I'll leave you with that. The next book that I had attempted to read but actually didn't make it through was The Atlas Six. I want to say I got about maybe like a little more than 50% through the book, and then I decided to DNF it. I lost interest, honestly. That's really what it came down to. I really liked the vibe at the beginning. I thought I was going to like the dark academia and magic that was going on, and then it really just lost me when it came to all of the characters, and I don't know, like, I just didn't care about this book anymore, which is really quite sad because I know it's a favorite of many. So if it's your favorite or a book that you really liked, just delete this from your memory. Another book that I read was Queen of Shadows. I am currently in the Throne of Glass series, and I am loving it. If I had to succinctly review this book, gosh, it really deserves more than a mini review, but my mini review for this book is an epic adventure with a cast of characters that you adore and fall in love with, and you get multiple perspectives. This is not going to be a mini review. I'm just going to have to cut myself short and tell you, please read Throne of Glass. If you are someone who likes fantasy and you have not read Throne of Glass, what are you doing? If you are someone who wants to like fantasy and you're not sure where to start, don't let the length of this series intimidate you. You can do it. I believe in you. This is a great series and I definitely recommend it. Oh, I have to tell you about this book. So I know it's fall, okay? I know this says summer romance and it's fall, but I just couldn't bear the thought of letting the end of summer go by without squeezing in the last of my summer books, because that means I'd have to wait until 2025 and I just couldn't wait. So I read 2 summer books, the rule book and summer romance, and I'll just go ahead and review these together. What did I think of them? I adored this book. I'm just gonna tell you that out of the 2, this one was my favorite. Actually, okay, this is my review for this one. Have you ever seen those videos that are the is it cake videos, where you see an object and you have to guess just by looking at it if it's cake or not, and then someone will take a knife and cut through it and you'll see, oh my god, that wasn't a handbag, that was cake.
This is a bowling ball, and this is a cake. What?
That's this book. There's some pretty weighty topics in here, like divorce, a mom trying to find herself, re-entering the dating scene, and just things that are heavy and they don't look like cake. But when you cut into it, it is cake. And that's how I felt reading this book. It was a joy, a delight, covered heavier topics, but every bite that you took, it was still sweet. I loved it. This book, on the other hand, it wasn't an Is It Cake video, it was just a slice of cake, okay? I don't know. The analogies are getting weird, but whatever you anticipate that you're going to read when you see this cover, that's what you're gonna read. It was a typical rom-com. The characters were likable, the story was good, I laughed, but I honestly can't even remember the main character's name. It wasn't a waste of time, but I'm not gonna think about it all the time, if that makes sense. Moving on to the next book, this is The Night Circus. And I read this book for our book club pick. I'll link that below in the description if you're interested in joining our book club. But what I have to say about this book is that reading it wasn't enjoyable for me. Listening to it was. It was narrated by, if you're a Potterhead and you have listened to the Harry Potter audiobooks, it's the same narrator who narrates Harry Potter, and he does an excellent job, of course, narrating this book. So, do I recommend reading it? Yes, if you are someone who likes ambiance. If you read a book for the vibes, this is your book. If you read a book for the character development or the plot or things like that, there's elements of that in this, but I would say this book is mostly vibes. So, listen to it. It was still a fun time, and if you're gonna read this book or listen to it, fall is your season. Moving on to Middle of the Night. Okay, you clearly know I like this. I love Riley Sager. This was actually another book club pick. This is our book club pick for the month of October. And for me, solid 5 stars. Do I mean that? Let me think. No. Okay, I'm gonna edit that. 4.75 stars. Because there is one thing that I would have done differently after, like, once I got to the conclusion and the plot twist was revealed. Yeah, I wish there would have been a few small tweaks that I'm not going to mention because I don't want any spoilers in this video, but this was a really fun book. Spooky vibes. I love Riley Sager. If you're looking for a new release thriller to read this season, check out Middle of the Night. Moving on to one of my favorite authors, Catherine Center. So when it comes to Catherine Center, every single book that I've read up until this point, written by her, has been a 5-star. This is my first exception though. I really enjoyed this book. Maybe the second half of the book is where I started to enjoy it and it started to capture me more. I think the reason that I didn't enjoy the first half is everything felt a little bit stereotypical to me, which I feel like that's a harsh thing to say, but that's also exactly how I felt. So, do I recommend this book? Yeah, of course. However, if you're new to Catherine Center, maybe start off with Hello Stranger or the rom-commers, because those are both 5 stars and I want you to have the best first impression of one of my favorite authors. Moving on, my husband chose this book for me, Psycho. You already know if you already watched my previous video, solid 5 stars. Solid 5 stars. If you don't even like horror, well, I'm not going to say that. If you aren't afraid to try horror and maybe it's a newer genre to you, start with this because it is bite-sized, it is tiny, and if you don't like it, you didn't waste a lot of time. but I think you're gonna like it. I really liked it. So, next book is Ruthless Vows. This is the second book in the duology. The first one is Divine Rivals, and I think I love this one just as much as Divine Rivals. I did not think that was even possible because I raved and raved and raved about that book, but it's possible. This is such a great duology. And if you're someone who likes romance and you're not really sure if you like fantasy, but you know you love romance, I think you should read this duology just to see if you would be someone who might like fantasy, because the romance story in these two books really is good enough to carry the entire thing. The next book on my books that I read this month was Illusion of Stars, which, to be fair, I didn't actually read this one, and I attempted to read it. I gave it a great shot, but unfortunately the font print for me is just like a little bit too weak for my eyes, and it was causing me to get a headache because I was straining to see. So I just decided, you know what, I'll read this another month, and I bought it on Kindle. So stick around to see my thoughts on this book here that has a gorgeous cover. We'll see what the inside is like in a couple months from now. Another book that I read last month, which it was an audiobook, so I don't know if I really read it, but if you will let that count, it counts for me, is Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham. I love Gilmore Girls, and if you're a Gilmore girly, you should listen to this book. 'Tis the season for Gilmore Girls. It was just so fun to hear Lauren talk and know that she really does carry the spirit of Lorelai. I would say like the first 45 minutes of the book, I was like iffy if I was going to like the book. I was like, I mean, I don't know. I love Gilmore Girls, but would I really enjoy this audio narration? Yes. If you love Gilmore Girls, you will love this book. Another book that I read on Kindle that I don't have the physical copy for is The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post. And I read that for a local book club here in my community, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It was a historical fiction, but like loose fiction, because it was also based on the actual life of Marjorie Post, which, if you don't know, I did not know, but like Post as in Post cereal. It's kind of neat to see how one of the American food empires was formed and what life looked like for those who were significantly wealthy in the 20s, and then also how they gave back. I enjoyed it. Maybe there were parts that were a little slow for me, but I listened to this one and read it on Kindle, so I was able to listen on double speed and keep the pace going at a speed that I liked. So I would recommend that if you are someone who likes historical fiction, that you give this book a shot. The next book that I read, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. What a fun book. This book felt like Knives Out, but cozy. Cozy Knives Out. I thought this book was so fun. I would like look for excuses to do things around the house just so I could listen to this book. I did not guess the ending. I did not see any of the plot twists coming. I mean, that's the whole point that you read a cozy mystery, is to feel those feelings of surprise and have those light bulb aha moments, and you get plenty of those with this book. Another book that I read, or rather attempted to read last month, was What Waits in the Woods, and this was gifted to me by Aardvark Book Box. So it's not a book that I picked out for myself, but I thought, you know, by reading the back and the blurbs that it might be something that I would enjoy. But unfortunately for me, I read about 100 pages of this one, and then I just decided to DNF it because it was kind of putting me into a reading slump. It's not a book for me, but if you like it, good for you. The very last book that I read during the month of September is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. And oh my word, this was just such a good surprise from Miss Lauren Roberts. I will say that after reading Powerless and Powerful, that I think that this book is the best showcase of her writing abilities thus far. And for me personally, Powerless was good. Now, I wouldn't say it's great, but it was a good book with a great ending. So I didn't really enjoy the first half of the book because it felt, for me, too closely aligned with the Hunger Games plot. It felt like reading a book that I had already read before. But the second half of the book, I felt like she found her footing and really came into her own and took the story in a new direction that was enjoyable. I ended up really liking it and wanting to read the novella. The novella left a bad taste in my mouth. I was very excited for it. I wanted to read Adina's story, but when I was reading it, the writing itself felt a little bit disjointed, like I was missing thoughts from the author as I was reading it. I'd circle back and say, oh, did I miss something? Only to realize, no, I hadn't missed anything. It just felt like there were gaps, so it didn't flow. But Reckless lacks nothing in terms of writing and skill level there. For me, the story was flowing the entire time. The chemistry between the two main characters was solid. The only reason that this book did not get 5-star for me was because the entire book is about a journey to a destination where I felt like that was hard to keep pace. I wish that we would have seen more plot development and setting development, but it's a very small and minor critique, so I still ended up giving this 4.75 stars, and the ending alone it's worth reading the book for the ending, and I absolutely am going to read the next book in this trilogy because, I mean, after the ending, it was such a cliffhanger, I can only imagine. I really have no clue how this trilogy is going to end. I am so excited for her to release that third book. Anyways, those are all of the many books that I read during the month of September. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and listening to me explain all of the books and what I thought of each and every one of them. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I don't know how to end this video, so bye.